Welcome, guys, to How the Frack We Got Here, a show that takes the news and events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan, and on this show, we simply are all about the facts. There are plenty of news stations out there that simply want to do anything short but inform you. Here at How the Frack We Got Here, that's all we believe in. We go up to the left, we go up to the right, we go up to the middle of independence. We go after all sides because there's more than one side of a story to everything. And you need to know it all in order to actually formulate your own opinion. And that's what we try to do here at How the Frack We Got Here. Thanks for listening, and hold on. It's going to be fun. Welcome, guys, to How the Frack We Got Here, a show that takes the news and events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan, and on this show, we simply are all about the facts. There are plenty of news stations out there that simply want to do anything short but inform you. Here at How the Frack We Got Here, that's all we believe in. We go up to the left, we go up to the right, we go up to the middle of independence. We go after all sides because there's more than one side of a story to everything, and you need to know it all in order to actually formulate your own opinion. And that's what we try to do here at How the Frack We Got Here. Thanks for listening, and hold on. It's going to be fun.
All right, good morning, guys. Today's date, March 20th, 2021, and this is How the Frack We Got Here. I'm your host, most Will Buchanan. On How the Frack We Got Here, we do take the events of the week and try to make sense of it all. Before I do get started, guys, this is an adult podcast, which means, actually, it's not an adult podcast. We're trying to keep it family friendly because we always try to keep stuff family friendly, which means that sometimes some choice words may get said, but also there may be things that show them a graphic nature, so definitely viewer discretion is advised. Aside from that, welcome. Well, guys, not a lot this week to go in. Not a lot of things. If I could find words today, that'd be great. Not a lot of things to go into, but let's go ahead and get into it. It would be remiss to say that the story that's actually getting everybody's attention today is about a man that apparently has a sexual addiction and decided to take it out on people, specifically Asian Americans in spas.
Shooting spree in Georgia. The shooter in that rampage at 3 spas has now been charged with 8 counts of murder. As we learn more about how police tracked him down, Steve Osunsami is in Atlanta with the latest. Good morning, Steve.
Good morning to you, Robin. There are a lot of intense discussions here about potential hate crimes and whether those possible hate crimes will be against women, Asians, or both. Authorities in Georgia this morning say that the accused gunman who killed 8 people here is admitting to the shootings.
Some guy came in and took the gun, so everybody heard the gunshot.
Georgia investigators say that 21-year-old Robert Aaron Long, a white man who they've now charged, is guilty of the deadliest mass murder since 2019. Officers say they were able to track him down thanks to his parents, who saw these surveillance pictures and told police that this was him. Police were then able to track his cell phone and caught up with him south of Atlanta. They believe if they hadn't stopped him, he would have continued driving to Florida, gunning down more victims.
We were contacted by members of the family indicating that maybe their son. They're very distraught, and they were very helpful in this apprehension.
Police say he killed 8 people at 3 spas in the Atlanta area. 6 of his 8 alleged victims were Asian women.
We need to make sure if we have any Asian spas, we need to be checking on them.
Investigators say that based on their interviews, the attack was more about violence against women.
We are not about to get into victim blaming, victim shaming here.
And less about race. They say the spas he attacked were businesses he visited before.
He apparently has an issue, what he considers a sex addiction, and sees these locations as something that allows him to go to these places, and it's a temptation for him that he wanted to eliminate.
Police have not yet ruled this out as a hate crime. The killings come at a time when violence against Asian Americans is growing, thanks in part to racist tropes surrounding the coronavirus. Overnight, thousands showed up at vigils across the country to mourn this loss of life. It's a show of support from a community that is terrified and doing something about it. Also this morning, the spokesperson for the sheriff's office. There are a lot of concerns about this statement, which many feel appears to sympathize with the shooter and not his alleged victims.
I spoke with investigators that interviewed him this morning, and they got that impression that, yes, he understood the gravity of it, and he was pretty much fed up and kind of at the end of his rope, and yesterday was a really bad day for him, and this is what he did.
Yes, it was a bad day for the shooter. You know, some people in life really need to watch what they say when it comes to certain things, especially during that. Yes, like I said before, it's amazing how it's not they say it's not a hate crime. The man literally went looking into spas for Asian American people. There is nothing else that can be said at this point that, yes, I was looking to basically kill Asian Americans. And I was looking to, and the most messed up part about the whole thing is, they say that he was looking to cure his sexual addiction. He was looking. It's not meant to be laughed at. It just amazes me so that there's only one ethnic group out there that will blame everything else except themselves for murder or doing anything for that matter. They'll blame alcohol. They'll blame diabetes. They'll blame sexual addictions. It's never just them. And I don't think I need to sit here and say which group that is. You guys can pretty much figure that out for yourselves. But the other thing that kills me, aside from the fact of a police officer telling that the shooter had a really bad day, I'm pretty sure the victims of his shootings had worser days. But of course, that officer is now under fire, basically for his lack of tactfulness, as well as the fact that now he done brought basically a crap storm upon himself. The shooter himself is saying that, oh, these aren't hate crime related. There's a reason why he's saying that, because hate crimes carry a federal charge. He's killed 8 people. So if 8 people, if each of those murders that he did was charged with a hate crime, that's federal, which means he could get the death penalty. So that's why he's sitting there saying, "Oh no, this isn't race related. This isn't. I just have a sexual addiction problem." No, you basically did a hate crime, and you should get the charges that come at you. But this does shine a light, honestly, on Asian Americans, because let's be honest, ever since Donald Trump called it the virus came from China. You know, when it came from that whole thing and said that Chinese people are responsible for the coronavirus, a rise in Asian American attacks have happened, even to the point where Asian Americans are coming forward and explaining their horror stories.
After lockdowns in New York City,
I was going to my car with my cart.
A lady started following us.
And this guy in this big giant Suburban almost ran me over. He didn't yield to me.
She started screaming things directed at me.
About all kinds of terrible things.
Go back to China, you're so dirty.
You effing Ever since we moved here from Thailand in 1960, I've heard so many discrimination statements. We were told to go back to our country from our own pastor. I have been told that we all look alike. Obviously, we don't look alike.
I was heavily bullied when I was in middle school. They would make like slanted eye gestures at me. They would mock my accent. They would sexualize me. My former vice principal actually told me that it was a good thing. People are catching yellow fever.
Growing up in Texas, some people being like, "Hey, you're like my first Asian friend. That's so cool." And like, of course it would make me feel uncomfortable, but I would be like, okay, like I see where they're coming from. Like they're ignorant. They're not trying to be racist. Whereas there's instances of very clearly of someone following me out of a Target and calling me like a disgusting dog eating. And for me, that's like, there's no desire to see me as a person. There's no desire to get to know me. It's purely like, I've made up my mind about who you are and I hate you for it.
There was a period of time where I didn't want to be Asian at all. I wish I was like some other race, because like, it's just so, I feel so sick of being like, oh, sorry, my gosh, discriminated against. And Back in school, actually, when I got bullied, that too, like the whole like Asian fever, it made me feel gross. Like I couldn't be comfortable in my skin.
It really hasn't been until recently that I've seen friends actually text me or ask me about these things, and it makes me feel good and it makes me feel supported. It's also a very confusing experience because nothing much has changed for me. It's just that the media is covering it a little bit more and more people are talking about it. So while it's like I'm happy, I'm also a little bit confused of how to navigate that.
When I became a United States citizen, I decided that I was going to be as involved as I can be and be the good citizen that I am. And I make my kids involved as much as they can. And so we're all proud to be Asian Americans. Just see us as we are. We're peaceful people. We're forgiving, but we hurt too.
I think because of the rhetoric we have around Asian Americans, there's sort of this idea that we're close to whiteness or that we don't really face oppression like other people of color do. I just hope that we come to a place where we understand that what we feel is valid and we don't have to compare or contrast. It's not a game of pointing fingers. It really is just about dealing with our own trauma.
Not to be really insensitive, but honestly, it's like every black person's pretty much saying when they see that stuff, "Welcome to the party," and it's sad because yes, the recent attacks have prompted a lot of stop Asian hate, stand in support with us. Nothing wrong with that, really isn't. But at the same time, as the representative of people who have been oppressed since we got here, who are still being harassed, who are still being not seen as anything less than human, who are not still being seen as equal, who is being loving the fact that Americans appropriate their culture but hate them. I mean, it's hard. I mean, it's really hard as a black person not to sympathize. We do sympathize with Asian Americans because, I mean, they are going through what we are still going through. But that also being said, keep in mind, from a black person's perspective, some Asian people actually still didn't like us and were only informed with white people about how they treated us. You've seen movies where it's like the stereotypical convenience store owner sees two black people come in there. I think it was what was it? Don't be a menace to South Central while drinking your juice in the hood, where you just see the lady come in. It's like, hurry up and buy. And of course, if you've ever been to a hair store, if you've ever been into an Asian American owned store, as a black person, you still feel like you're being judged. So do not get me wrong about this, guys. Yes, all racism needs to stop. All racism does need to stop. And yes, we do need to stand in solidarity with Asian Americans as far as the hate and things of that nature. But we also need them to stand with us. I mean, you can't. I mean, that's the thing about it. I do know there's a lot of them out there that do stand with groups like Black Lives Matter. But at the same time, you're asking us to stand. We need you to stand right along with us. And that, like I said, whole nother conversation. And I do mean a whole nother conversation regarding that. But moving right along, Biden is still taking his victory lap, getting his $1.9 trillion COVID relief plan passed out. People are getting stimulus checks, although it's still one check and not continuous, because of one $1,400 check a month. One $1,400 check is just simply not going to cut it. But a lot of people are actually getting those checks. Cool. With that being said, Biden takes on his next step in the political plan, I should say. First, tackling the long gestation problem with immigration.
Is growing on the border. Today, Democrats in the U.S. House of Representatives are taking their first votes on immigration reform in this Congress. They'll be joined, of course, by Republicans, although this is probably a party line vote. The legislation they're all expected to vote on and pass would give a path to citizenship to millions of people, including dreamers, those brought to the United States as children. But will it make it to the president's desk? ABC's Faith Abube takes a look.
An influx of unaccompanied migrant children at the U.S. border, a surge of 25% in the past week, giving Republicans political ammunition.
So there is no question that President Biden provoked the problem. The question is, how can we stop it? The Biden administration and congressional Democrats aren't providing any solutions.
To be clear, the House bills support undocumented immigrants already in the U.S. One protects 2.5 million of them, known as Dreamers, brought to this country as children, offering them a path to citizenship.
This bill will correct the wrong that has brought fear and uncertainty to so many Americans. Yes, Americans. American is their home and their country.
The second bill provides legal status to agricultural workers. More than 1 million undocumented farm workers would be able to apply for legal status and establish a path to becoming permanent residents. That is, if they've worked at least 180 days in agriculture in this country over 2 years.
Me llena de emoción. It fills me with emotion to hear that this new president is including us, agricultural workers, in his immigration proposal. Finally, we don't have to be afraid.
Historically, there's been some bipartisan support for immigration reform.
I've been trying to solve this immigration problem since 2006.
But now Republicans who visited the southern border this week are indicating until that surge at the border is under control, even piecemeal progress may be on pause.
This mess is capturing the country's attention. In the meantime, my Democrat colleagues have presented an immigration reform law that they know will never become law.
Immigration is always the go-to topic. My community becomes a prop.
And President Biden has already introduced a sweeping immigration reform plan, which includes a path to citizenship for some undocumented immigrants. However, without enough support in the House or in the Senate, it faces long odds of going anywhere. Terry?
Well, okay. So let's look at it this way. It's no surprise immigration has still been a problem with the United States. I don't know how it's still a problem. Well, actually, no, that's incorrect. I do know how it's still a problem. Because basically, one side, one political party wants to go ahead and actually have a standing immigration path to citizenship, while the other party just doesn't want to come out and say that we don't want immigrants here. But they say so in so many ways by destabilizing the other party. What I mean by that is Democrats have always wanted to sit there and actually, solve the immigration problem. It's not like we don't have space. I'm like, of all the available space that we have in the U.S., and a lot of people do forget the fact we are a nation of immigrants. The only people in my mind who are not immigrants are Native Americans, because their land was taken from them. So again, we are a nation of immigrants. Why is it that we are in 2021 and we are still facing this problem of, how do we get undocumented or illegal immigrants to citizenship? They've already been here. Like, my thing is, I'm gonna be honest with you guys. My thing is, this is a land of opportunity. If you can make it here, cool. If you, as I said, as long as you don't have a murderous record, you're not a killer, you're not trying to run or trying to live free from a life of crime, in my mind, it should be easy to make a citizen. But the problem is with this is just that they have to, backtrack it. And let's be honest, a lot of countries that actually hold documents on immigrants that are coming to the U.S. are not kept up. Some are not at all. So then there's background checks, things of that nature. Again, Trump could have actually helped out with this by actually sending lawyers and FEMA and immigration assistance groups down to the border to help these people get documented and then, work on their citizenship. He decided to try to build a wall and sent the army. Yeah, that's a wonderful way to welcome immigrants. So again, President Biden is trying to actually get a path to citizenship. We did actually have that under Obama, which was the DREAM Act, which the DREAM Act did help, was designed to actually help immigrants become U.S. citizens, whether through military service or through medical or things of that nature. So there was at one point a path to get this involved, but in typical Republican nature, We have to turn around and sit there and say, we're just going to allow everybody over here. You know, that's what they're going to do. The Democrats are going to allow everybody over here. We're going to be overrun with immigrants. You know what I hear in my head when I hear this? You know what I hear? And I want to know what you guys think as well. Whenever you hear Republicans sit there and say they're just letting everybody over the border, I hear the fact that somebody is no longer going to be the minority. Somebody is scared of being the minority. Someone is scared that if enough immigrants come over here, become citizens, citizens can vote. Which means that eventually the majority will become the minority. And when you've been on top for so long, you're a little scared of how it feels to be when you're no longer the top dog in the food chain. And so there's always that fear, but they can't sit there and say, we're scared of minorities becoming the majority in our country, which means that they can turn around and influence things. But they don't want to say that because that would be truthful. What you guys are saying, Clara, you know he killed white women there too. Yep, I mean he did. I mean you're right, Clara, he did. John, you know, F hate, I agree with that. Kelly, we are a nation of immigrants. You were just typing that. Okay. But yes, it never ceases to amaze me, guys, that when it comes down to it, they just don't want they just don't want an immigration. They don't want an immigration system in the U.S. Well, at least the Republicans don't. And they're going to keep on saying it, but you've never heard, and especially Lindsey Graham, that troglodyte. Yeah, Lindsey Graham, that troglodyte, saying, I've been trying to solve the immigration problem since 2006. No, you have been literally kissing Trump's behind since 2016. And beforehand, you were kissing every other Republican that was coming up. You were doing, you're just the brown noser in every workplace that does just enough to keep his position because you know you're not liked by anyone. Yes, Lindsey Graham, I did call you a troglodyte. Because again, he tries to say, I've been trying to solve this problem. Really? You've never put forward an immigration bill. I looked. I actually looked up to see what immigration bills Lindsey Graham has actually put in. None. But you know what he did do? He voted against the DREAM Act. A DREAM Act, which again was submitted by Democrats. He voted against it, saying, and I quote, this is basically going to be a welcome sign to all immigrants to come here illegally. No, it's not. We still want to have people come in because, as I said before, it's not like we're crowded. It's not like we could use, it's not like we could use more people. Plenty of states are emptying out. And at the same time, like I said before, what is the one thing Republicans are worried about? Minorities. And again, minorities become voters, and votes, especially around election time, are the only times Republicans care about people. Tell me I'm wrong. But besides that, guys, Biden is also moving forward in tax plans, which again, if you make over $400,000, you might not like this next set of news.
On defense this morning with the migrant surge growing at the southern border.
Do you have to say quite clearly, don't come?
Yes, I can say quite clearly, don't come. And what we're in the process of getting set up, don't leave your town or city or community.
In an interview with ABC News, the president pushing back on criticism migrants are crossing in such large numbers because he has reversed several Trump-era immigration policies.
The idea that Joe Biden said come, because I heard the other day that they're coming because they know I'm a nice guy. Well, here's the deal. They're not.
The president has halted construction of his predecessor's border wall and ended the Trump policy that required would-be refugees to remain in Mexico during the asylum process. And while most migrants are still barred from entering the U.S., unaccompanied children are being admitted. According to data obtained by NBC News, the Border Patrol has detained 4,200 unaccompanied migrant children as of Sunday, about 1,000 more than last week's already record number. Most staying in custody more than the legal limit of 72 hours. Overnight, former President Trump lashing out.
Young children are coming in and they leave their homes and they come up because they think it's going to be so wonderful.
It comes as the president is gearing up for a different battle on Capitol Hill. According to two administration officials, Mr. Biden and his top aides are discussing a major tax increase to pay for part of his agenda, rolling back some of the 2017 2018 Trump tax cuts, increasing taxes on those making more than $400,000 per year and increasing the corporate tax rate from 21 to 28%.
If we just took the tax rate back to what it was when Bush was president, that would raise $230 billion. Yet they're complaining because I'm providing a tax credit for childcare for the poor, for the middle class.
It's already sparking fierce opposition from Senate Republicans who argue higher rates could encourage businesses to move overseas.
I don't think there's going to be any enthusiasm on our side for a tax increase.
Yeah, really sharp political divide.
Oh, there it is. There it is. I was waiting for it. Because again, Biden has sat there and said, we are going to raise the corporate tax rate. We are going to roll back Trump tax cuts. If you make over $400,000 a year, you will be paying higher taxes. And Republicans did exactly the same song and dance. Well, this is gonna kill jobs. This is gonna move stuff over. This is gonna have companies move overseas. This is not good. For who? Increased child care tax credits, tax breaks for the middle and lower class, and the rich are affected? Who? Again, guys, tell me I'm wrong. Tell me if I'm wrong out of this. But why is it, I keep on pointing this out, about Republicans, keep in mind, Republicans are the party of less government, personal involvement. They are the champions of small business, as they call themselves. Family values, and it's amazing to me that they say the same song and dance whenever the corporate tax rate is increased, whenever tax breaks are given to the middle and lower classes, and taxes are raised on the rich. They say the same three things, and mark my words on this, they say the same three things all the time. Oh, well, this is going to kill jobs. Yep, that's a greatest hit. Well, you know, if the rich pay more, if the rich pay more, that means that there'll be less job creators. 2, and the coup de grace. Well, if you raise the rate on corporate taxes, companies will move their jobs overseas. See, if you literally and figuratively, it's the same three things every time a Republican says it. They never say nothing different. It is like playing the greatest hits from a band that was successful in the 80s. They're gonna go with what works. But factually, in history and in economics, whenever the corporate tax rate was raised, whenever the rich paid more, and tax breaks were given to the middle and lower class, the economy thrived. Correct? I mean, you can look it up. I actually should have had the graph. I should actually found that graphic from the National Economic Institution, the National Institute of Economics in the U.S. I should have pulled that up, so I'm sorry about that. But they actually went back under each presidential administration, and they found that out. The corporate tax rate at one point was as high as 35%, which it should be higher now. 28% is being generous. It actually could be 35%. At the same time, tax breaks were given to the middle and lower class, and the wealthy, even the well-off. I'll even say this, the well-off, not even wealthy, the well-off were still paying higher taxes. And guess what? They're still rich. The rich can pay higher taxes, and guess what? They're still rich. Republicans defending millionaires and billionaires is a tale as old as time. But the tax plan that Biden wants to put out can work. I still sit there and say the corporate tax rate should be higher. I still say there should be a wealth tax, as Senator Elizabeth Warren pointed out, because the rich have to, because really, truth be told, the rich have not been paying their fair share. So why not go ahead and have them? But we know what the Republicans are going to do. The Republicans are going to sit there and oppose it because they don't believe in doing anything that doesn't benefit them and kickbacks to their friends. Which is kind of funny. They talk about the Democrats giving money to their rich friends while they're giving corporations in Wall Street a blank check. Just saying. Really, Kelly, bye-bye. Bye. But moving right along, guys. representative for the GOP, and someone basically getting paid to do nothing at their job, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Democrats have introduced a bill to have her expelled from the House of Representatives because they said, quote unquote, that she advocated violence against our peers, the speaker, and our government. Now, although all 72 Democrats have supported this resolution, 0 Republicans have not. I'm not surprised by that because Republicans will never vote out one of their own. Now, the problem with this is, under the Constitution, in the House of Representatives, to expel any member requires a 2/3 vote, which means that, unfortunately, without Republican support, this is honestly not going anywhere. Because the simple fact of the matter is, as I reported a long time ago, that that unless, and I say unless, that the Republicans or the House Minority Leader, Kevin McCarthy, decides to actually boot Major Taylor Greene, unfortunately, she is going to be here to stay. Just because the fact of the matter is, Republicans altogether are basically against anything the Democrats put out, which I'm hoping the Democrats will turn around and say, we're against air, so Republicans can stop breathing. Just hopeful. But no, it amazes me so that a woman like Major Greene, Representative Greene, because she was a QAnon supporter. Now she says she's not a QAnon supporter. She has been removed from all her duties as being on several different committees. So she's basically in office getting paid for doing nothing. That must be nice. It must be nice. But again, like I said before, until the Democrats until either Representative McCarthy or Republicans come on board, unfortunately, that measure really won't be going anywhere because, like I said, in order to actually expel any member from the House of Representatives requires a 2/3 majority, and I don't see Republicans coming to the table anytime soon. And Marjorie Greene right now is just enjoying life, getting paid and getting government benefits for literally and figuratively doing nothing. Moving right along, guys, something I did want to point out that I fear, and I say I fear, especially for women, just because of the subject of abortion. No matter how you feel about it, no matter how you feel about abortion, it is still a topic that is still argued in this country, even in 2021. But I sat there and said, when Trump and Turtle Mitch McConnell decided to force in 2 Supreme Court picks, that between Barnett and Kavanaugh, that the Supreme Court would be leaning to the right. And I sat there and said this, that if you have a conservative Supreme Court on there, that the question of abortion would come up, and that the ruling behind Roe versus Wade may get questioned. And this article that actually was posted yesterday, posted a day ago, where it said Supreme Court conservatives want to topple abortion rights but can't seem to agree on how. And I've been saying this because, unfortunately, Supreme Court Justice John Roberts is no longer the swing vote as far as abortion goes. So we know at least 5 judges and Supreme Court justice want to overturn rulings that support a right to end a pregnancy. Now, we already know Clarence Thomas. I like to call him the local coon of the Supreme Court because he basically is a coon. He is basically he is basically the one black friend that every racist white person knows. But he has sat there and said our abortion jurisprudence has spiraled out of control. He has written. Neil Gorsuch said that we have lost our way. But also says that the justice's standards, which again, he's against it. Judge Neil Gorsuch was actually a recent Biden pick. Beforehand, he was actually a pick for President Obama, but he was also for abortion as far as being pro-choice. Samuel Alito, again, was sitting there saying, he was sitting there saying that he basically was going over decades-old precedents that allowed physicians and other third parties to sue states over allegation that might impinge on a pregnant woman's rights. So again, he was against abortion, and that is the thing with Amy Coney Barrett in there and Kavanaugh, because we know Amy Coney Barrett is really one of those people that is highly, that is definitely religious, which, let's be honest, religion does play a factor into most of these things. So you can imagine where her vote's going to go. And Kavanaugh's a wild card. But again, he's a Trump pick. So is Barnett. So if a case ever came up to the Supreme Court challenging the Roe versus Wade, ruling, let's be honest, guys, there is a chance that ruling can be reversed. And again, I say this for women because women's bodies are, and you can argue this all day, but there is one certifiable fact. Women's bodies are theirs and theirs alone. The choices and the consequences come with them. Whatever they decide to do should honestly be nobody's business. If you want to get an abortion, get an abortion. If you don't want an abortion, don't get an abortion. If you don't like what another woman is doing with her body, it's not your call. But let's be honest, so many groups out there, especially religious groups, and want to save these, they always want to save these babies until they're born. And then after they're born, it's like, you're on your own. And I could argue that all day. I really could. I could really argue all day that the same people who want abortion to be outlawed would not be the same people that would be the first ones to line up at an adoption center. Even more so now in this conservative-leaning Supreme Court. That's why I sat there and said a long time ago, when they asked Biden, do you want to just overpack the Supreme Court? I mean, you should. There should be some sort of balance, because I'll be honest with you, there should be some sort of balance. I think the Supreme Court should be balanced, conservative as well as leaning, as well as leaning liberal or left-sided Supreme Court justices. I think it needs to be balanced. You want to have 4 that are conservative and 4 that are leaning left liberal? Cool. It's a balanced court. But the problem is right now, the Supreme Court is not balanced because you have more conservatives than lefters. That alone is scary. Very scary. But we'll follow that story as it comes along. But also, another story that's come up with Biden is that Schumer, who is now the Senate Majority Leader, thank you God, is not letting this one go about the student loan debt. And it's interesting where Chuck Schumer is still standing on and the amount that he's asking for.
Real quick is on forgiving student loan debt. President Biden said that flatly no, that to the progressives, saying it should be $50,000. He said it should be $10,000. Your reaction?
We want at least $50,000 canceled. We believe, again, this is $1.7 trillion of student debt. And if you cancel that debt, you give a lifeline to millions of people across this country. So let's work on it together. Obviously, if Congress could do it, that's great. But we believe that the president has the authority to do it. And we've been in conversation with the White House about it. And we urge President Biden to use every tool in his toolbox and get relief to people at this.
Yeah, I mean, she is exactly right. The representative there is exactly right. Biden could turn around and do an executive order. And I keep saying this. I know we're expecting a lot out of Biden in this first term of the presidency. We are. A lot is at stake here. As far as the student loan debt, as far as immigration and things of that nature. I get that. But student loan debt can be wiped out overnight. He can do an executive order to basically forgive all student debt, which again would be a nearly $2 trillion debt. Why not? Again, I have sat there and said this because I put Biden and Madam Vice President Kamala Harris in the hot seat. They both sat there and said that there needs to be some sort of student loan debt forgiveness, because let's be honest, for all those that are being instructed about credit and about debt income ratios, things of that nature, student debt is kind of like a rock around your neck that you're trying to get away from, because it affects everything. It affects your ability to buy cars, to get loans, even jobs. Because let's be honest, yes, for all those that don't realize it, jobs look at your credit too. Especially jobs where there's a lot of high risk. You know, like for instance, working for a bank or a Wall Street market. They are going to look at your bank accounts and see, you know, and they look at your credit. Sorry, I didn't mean to say bank accounts. They will look at your credit and go, wait a minute, you got this much in debt? You're a risk. Somebody comes to you offering you money to do something that's not within your job qualifications, that's their reasoning. That is their reasoning. That's why you won't see a person who's filed for bankruptcy ever work for a Brinks truck. They will sit there and immediately assume they will sit there and assume you're a liability. So again, it's not just a fact of, taking off this debt. This debt that's taken off our backs would lead to so many doors open. And I've sat there and said this before because it seems like Biden won't admit it, but a lot of things he's doing is very Sanders-esque. Senator Sanders had sat there and said, we need to go ahead and eliminate student debt for all. We need to go ahead and issue stimulus payments until this pandemic is over. We need to go ahead and get immunizations out as soon as humanly possible. It is amazing how much Sanders is saying that all of this is coming to fruition, except the monthly stimulus payments. So why not go ahead and cancel $50,000 student debt? I mean, at least $50,000. It would be a nice drop in the bucket, but for a progressive statement, it needs to move forward. It honestly needs to move further. It does. The reason why, if it moves further, you will get so much more far. As like I said before, nobody's going to complain if your student debt's gone. I know a lot of people are going to sit there and say, well, I worked for mine. I worked and I got mine paid off. And now you're telling me that someone else can do the same. Well, here's the thing about this. Everybody's situation is different. If you are able to work and pay off your student debt, cool. You're one of the few. If you had an inheritance, or if you had people who had options, or if you had people that could loan you money, or any of the other situations out there that helped you get to paying off that debt quicker, good for you. A lot of people don't have that, especially in this day and age where coronavirus has actually reduced a lot of the workforce. Instead of a lot of people working from home, that a lot of people right now are trying to decide to either pay their student loans or pay to keep the lights on. And that $1,400 does help, but it'll be gone. I mean, once that $1,400 is gone, it's like, then what? You still have people that still need assistance. And even though continuous stimulus payments a month would be great, canceling student debt altogether. I know Chuck Schumer is wanting to do $50,000. He is not going to stop. He is not going to stop pushing on that. And I think that him and the other handful of Democrats, actually all Democrats, need to be on board with this, and pretty much tell Biden the simple truth. That, for the simple fact of the matter, that we need to eliminate student loans. And Biden will sit there and say, well, he's not going to do that. Well, this is the part where, he's going to have to do some things that he just might not like, but at the same time needs to be done. And I'm speaking from this as a person who's still paying on their student loans. Yes, it goes a long way. You can change credit profiles overnight by simply forgiving student debt. It's about time that they finally do something that should have been done a long time ago, personally. Moving right along, guys, in some crazy news. I never thought not wearing a mask would lead a person to go ahead and go nuts and stab somebody.
Me has their dining room closed tonight, an employee telling me it's because they're short on staff. Well, just last night it was their shift manager who was stabbed by a suspect. Other employees came to his aid, and that suspect is still on the run. These are the brief moments leading up to a violent attack against a fast food manager.
When officers arrived at the scene, they found the shift manager leaning against the counter with multiple stab wounds.
The manager at this Jack in the Box restaurant off 45 South in League City was rushed to the hospital and is expected to recover. Police say it started when the manager asked this man, James Henry Schultz, to put a mask on or use the drive-thru.
The male belligerently refused and said they did not want to serve him because he was homeless, and began yelling that he would be contacting his attorney as he was filming with the cell phone.
In this video, you can see the manager holding up the restaurant's written policies as he escorts Schultz to the door.
The suspect walked towards the door as if to leave. The manager turned his back, and the suspect ran up behind him, tackled him, and stabbed him multiple times.
As Schultz remains on the run tonight, neighbors here say they're shocked.
That's pretty extreme.
Put it on, eventually we'll get to take him off and go back to normal life, I hope so. But no need to kill somebody or injure somebody over it.
There's no reason to let it get to that point. You can refuse to do business at those locations or whatever it is you choose to do, but there's no reason to result to aggressive behavior like this.
Police believe the suspect used a pocket knife in the attack, a weapon they believe he may still have. In League City, Shelley Childers.
Crazy, ain't it? To just not wear a mask. I'm like, yes, a lot of people, here's the thing about masks. Yes, I know immunizations are going out. Yes, a lot of people are finally getting the shots. Yes, this will go a long way to reducing COVID cases. I myself am still waiting because I'm still considered low priority. That's fine. That I can wait. As long as other people who are, immunosuppressant or, kids or elderly that just need to get the shot, they can go ahead of me. I am completely fine with waiting. I am fine. So it's just the fact of wearing a mask. I still wear, even if you get inoculated, you still should wear a mask. It's just precaution. And I know a lot of people gonna say, well, masks don't work. I'm like, whenever I hear somebody say that, it just amazes me so about this. And I say this as I'm literally rubbing my head because I know some people who have argued that masks don't work, that herd immunity and all this crap. And I'm just thinking to myself, how did we get from listening to educated, seasoned healthcare professionals to a person who just goes on the internet and listens to some Yahoo in a basement and says, oh, you shouldn't wear a mask because it's a conspiracy. And they'll believe it. And I'm just thinking to myself, even now, I still make sure whenever I go out, I'm wearing a mask. I try to make sure whether I'm out and about or if I'm around people, I always try to make sure my mask is on. Just because it's precaution. Precautions curb cases. Every physician in the world will ever agree with that. But the fact that this person didn't want to put on a mask, yes, it's amazing. You know what's amazing, honestly? That those are probably the same people talking about, you can't tell me what to do with my body. But you get mad that the same right that you exercise over your body, the same right that a business owner can refuse service because you're not following the rules. So you decide to go crazy and stab a guy who was just simply enforcing company policy. And I always tell her, I say, never turn your back. I said it's been a while in the fast food industry, but I'm just saying, if you're escorting somebody out, you never turn your back on them, especially crazy people like that. So I hope that guy does get found and does get prosecuted for assault with a deadly weapon. He really does need to have that happen to him. Because, I mean, you stab somebody over fast food? Dude, white people. But moving forward, guys, also, like I said, I was talking about the vaccine, and the fact of the matter is just that, that a lot of people are taking it, but surprisingly, there's a group of people out there who are refusing to take it.
Medical center in New Jersey, I met so many who'd been desperate to get a vaccine appointment.
It's overwhelming, and I feel that I'm lucky.
But there are also millions rejecting it.
I'm not getting the vaccine because I'm honestly not scared of the virus.
I don't trust the vaccine at all.
Many of them white conservatives, like Gina Militello. She's a mom of 4 who works in a school and voted for former President Trump.
Public health officials and scientists and leading doctors are saying we should get this vaccine. Why are you so concerned about it?
I don't think that it's 100% safe and effective. And I believe that the risk is worse than what the benefit would be.
You're concerned that it hasn't been tested enough?
Yes.
A new poll finds nearly half of Trump voters do not plan to get the vaccine, compared to just 10% of Biden voters. Dr. Melody Weaver runs a clinic in rural Idaho.
You have people believing that masks don't matter. The vaccine's a conspiracy, and maybe they're out to get us.
It's a huge concern for Dr. Paul Offit, who serves on the FDA panel that approved the vaccines.
And this country needs everyone to get this vaccine, right? Or at least a certain percentage of people to eventually get to herd immunity.
You're right. We need about 80% at least of the population to be immune.
Dr. Ashish Jha is at Brown University.
It's politicized now. You hear people say, I don't believe in this administration. I don't believe in these vaccines.
Yeah, this is one of the more disturbing things in my mind, kind of disturbing turn of events. There's nothing political about this virus. The virus doesn't care if you're a Democrat or Republican, and the vaccines work just as well for Democrats and Republicans.
For me, as a scientist who's also a Christian, this is an answer to a lot of prayers.
Public health officials are targeting conservative media, and a new public service announcement features former presidents, including Republican George W. Bush.
It's important for our fellow citizens to get vaccinated.
But not Donald Trump, who got his vaccine privately.
What if your employer says you need to get the shot before going back to school?
I would have to find another job.
Why is it so important for every one of us to get this vaccine?
My message is really simple. We want to put it behind us. We want to get our lives back. We want to be able to see family and friends. The best and only real way we can do that is if most Americans get vaccinated.
Make that choice, because to not make that choice is not only to put yourself at risk, but to put everyone with whom you come in contact at risk.
I'm going to be honest with you guys, excuse me for that. I was like, I cringed. Okay. So the person that was a teacher, I am not getting the shot because I don't trust the data. Are you a scientist? Are you a physician? I believe you just said you were an educator, which is again scary that an educator is coming out and simply saying, well, I don't trust it because I don't like the results. And I was like, please don't say Trump supporter. Please don't say Trump supporter. Please. She voted for Trump. I don't understand it. I'm a fan of science. I am a fan of science. And the one thing about science, Neil deGrasse Tyson said it best about the true thing about science, that facts are real whether you believe it or not. Science is fact. We now have 3 vaccines that have efficiency well over 94%. Whether it's Moderna, Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson, they have all had the effectiveness of the vaccines for either 3 of them are well over 94%. How hard is it to sit there and give? I'm looking forward to getting vaccinated because you know why? I know it'll help. I know it'll get us back on track. I know it'll get us to some sense of. We won't go back to the old normal. That's just not going to happen. We're going to get to some. We're going to have a new normal. We're not going to be able to go back to the way things were. And honestly, that's fine because again, businesses are finding out how to actually work in a pandemic. And some businesses might like the way things are now just because they might find ways of saving money, especially office space if everybody's working from home. Restaurants have opened in pandemics and some have closed in pandemics. But we will never go back to where we once was. We can only move forward. That being said, however, the only way we are going to move forward is that everybody takes the vaccine. It amazes me. Well, I'm not surprised. I was going to do Gomer Pyle, surprise, 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 just because I expected this out of Trump supporters. Like I said, it amazes me so that even your cult leader, he got the vaccine in secret and didn't admit it until he was out of office. The same person who said COVID-19 was a hoax. It's not real. It'll be gone by summertime because heat kills the virus. You drink bleach, you take hydrochloroquine or any of this stuff to get rid of the virus. And who knew him actually getting the vaccine, him and his first hostage, Melania Trump, got the vaccine in secret. And Trump supporters are not fazed at all. They would rather sit there. And I was like, if you're a teacher, and again, the correspondent had the best question. What if your job requires you to be vaccinated before you come back to work? Well, I guess I'll be finding another job. Ma'am, as an educator, I wouldn't allow you around my children unvaccinated just because you're a risk. So again, it's not that hard, guys, to sum it all up and simply put, what's your alternative? Because if you say herd immunity, I explained herd immunity in my previous podcast. Herd immunity is not going to work in this situation because a lot of people would have to die off first before there is some sort of build up of resistance to the virus. I don't think we want to play that game of Russian roulette when almost close to 700,000 people have already passed. I don't think we want to play that game. But moving right along, though, there's also senators who are arguing with virologists and doctors, especially one who hasn't practiced ophthalmology since he basically became a senator.
16 million shots of the coronavirus vaccine have now been administered, including enough to fulfill President Biden's promise well ahead of schedule of 100 million shots in 100 days. Right now, I think it's day 58. But some Republicans are still very skeptical of efforts to fight the virus, as you can see in this tense exchange on Capitol Hill yesterday between Dr. Anthony Fauci and Senator Rand Paul.
You want people to get the vaccine? Give them a reward instead of telling them that the nanny state's going to be there for 3 more years and you got to wear a mask forever. People don't want to hear it. There's no science behind it.
Well, let me just state for the record that masks are not theater. Masks are protective. And we
have immunity there, theater. If you already have immunity, you're wearing a mask to give comfort to others. You're not wearing a mask because of any science.
I totally disagree with you.
Dr. Anthony Fauci joins us now. He is President Biden's chief medical advisor and the country's top expert on infectious diseases. Good morning to you, Dr. Fauci. So when are you and Senator Paul going to lunch? Let me just say, as the kids of today say, he really seemed to be coming for you, but you can certainly hold your own on this topic in particular. But were you a little taken aback by his line of questioning? And what is a message that you wanted to make sure that we all hear loud and clear?
Well, I mean, Senator Paul has this message that we don't need masks, which goes against just about everything we know about how to prevent spread of the virus. He was quoting literature selectively and leaving out important studies which actually show that people actually can get reinfected. His point was if you're vaccinated, you shouldn't be wearing a mask. In fact, as the more people get vaccinated, just put masks away. It's theater. That's ridiculous. I mean, and anybody who knows the literature, I mean, just the other day, yesterday, the day before, paper came out showing that in individuals who are infected, particularly the elderly individuals greater than 65, they have a high incidence of getting reinfected. So he was saying, if you've been infected or you've been vaccinated, don't wear a mask, which is completely against all public health tenets. So he's dead wrong. I mean, I don't have anything personally against him, but he's just, quite frankly, incorrect.
Now, we should point out that he is an eye doctor, and you are an infectious disease expert, just saying. Let's talk about the AstraZeneca vaccine.
I'm just going to stop it right there. That's it. The fact, sir, you are a virologist. He is an optometrist. That should have been the end. That should have been the end right there. Because, okay, in my profession, I'm IT. I'm considering myself in information technology. So if my car, knock on wood and hope it doesn't happen. So if my car has an issue and I go to a mechanic and the mechanic sits there and says, hey, so your engine needs to be rebuilt. I'm not going to argue with the mechanic over my engine needing to be rebuilt. Why? He's a mechanic. I'm an IT person. I'm not going to sit there and tell somebody who I went to, mind you. I'm not going to tell somebody who I went to for their knowledge and expertise and turn around and sit there and tell them they're wrong. I mean, that's exactly what Rand Paul did. Keep in mind, Senator Paul is an eye doctor, an optometrist, and there's nothing wrong with that. An optometrist is a wonderful profession. So shout out to all the optometrists out there who have common sense. But Rand Paul, he's an idiot. You're going to argue with the top virologist in the U.S. for infectious diseases and sit there and tell him that masks are theater for the vaccinated. No. Masks are precautions. Why do you think surgeons wear masks when operating? Why do you think doctors wear masks when speaking with patients? Why do you think dentists wear masks when they're operating inside of people's mouths? Precaution. You ever heard of airborne pathogens, bloodborne pathogens are all prevented by mask. just like this virus out here, we are still wearing masks to reduce the transmission of a virus from one person to another. This is known. This is not political theater. And anyone who sits there and says, well, if I'm vaccinated, I don't got to wear a mask, doesn't have a good understanding of how vaccines and viruses work. Viruses are just like people. They can adapt, they can evolve, and the same things that used to kill them don't kill them anymore. Just like penicillin was the one-all be-all, just like penicillin was the one-all be-all for killing most viruses and viral infections, some viral infections are now penicillin resistant. Why? They've evolved. So again, the whole idea of saying, well, if I'm vaccinated, you can get reinfected. Hence why the masks are precautionary tales to reduce the transmission of the virus. But I shouldn't expect that from Rand Paul. He's an eye doctor, and apparently not a very smart one at that. But really, guys, that's all the stories we got for this week. So we're going to move on to our Feel Good News segment. Now, what I said about Feel Good News segments here and how the frack we got here, we do cover a lot of stories, sometimes good, sometimes bad, sometimes the really, really bad stuff. So, it's the weekend, and just try to, put a little feel in your stuff, make you feel good, restore your faith in humanity. And so here are some stories I found that hopefully will do just that. I'll start with this first one about the teacher who survived COVID-19, decides to go back to the ICU team there that saved his life. This high school teacher in New York City was actually the first patient to be intubated with COVID-19. And because of that, he was actually in a coma for 3 weeks. He eventually did fall into a coma for 3 weeks. He did actually pull out of it. In which eventually, after about 2 weeks after his coma, that he was able to because he was actually able to survive, to recover and get back to being his normal self. But goes back to the ICU team. That's actually him down there. Was actually going to there, and at first they thought he was DOA. They thought that he was not going to make it. But the ICU team that he was around really wanted to stick with him and make sure he got the care that he wanted to. So it was cool that he was able to go back and actually thank that group of people. And I've said this before about nurses and doctors. You guys are really the MVPs of this time. You guys have sat there and really have stepped up and made sure people are taken care of while trying to keep the risk down. While those professions in the medical arts are definitely physically and emotionally draining. And I always want to say thank you to those that work in those professions. You guys really are the MVPs, and definitely thank you for your service on that. Another good news feeling I have is a very interesting wedding proposal involving a baby.
Been in the NICU for 10 months, and she's been making tremendous progress here at New York Presbyterian. Today I'm going to ask her mom to marry me so we can live the rest of our lives together. Say yes.
Thank you all. Thank you all. Funny part of the whole thing was, well, definitely mom stopped the couple, but it's like, you saw the ring put on her finger, everybody got quiet, and she said yes. I was like, Oh, that would have been awkward if she said no. But I thought that was pretty cool, to have a baby that's actually, thriving in the NCIU, and then in the cute shirt, mommy, will you marry daddy? That was cool. I couldn't knock that. But mom's off to the happy couple and to the baby that's thriving, and definitely for that. Now, the last feel-good story I have is, again, I have a very soft spot in my heart for educators and teachers. Just like doctors and nurses, they are doing extraordinary things and definitely trying times. And this teacher in Mississippi was definitely helping her community get vaccinated.
For the helpers, the saying is Mr. Rogers, but it applies to this next story perfectly. Vernetta Price is just that, a helper. Scheduling, driving, she does it all, making sure that her neighbors get the COVID-19 vaccine. And she's not stopping until her rural Mississippi community is protected. NBC News Now correspondent Priscilla Thompson has her story.
Retired school teacher Vernetta Price is still driving carpool, except now her riders are a little older and they're not heading to school.
Okay, you all ready?
Price has a new calling, getting neighbors in her small rural town of Sardis, Mississippi, vaccinated.
What side you want to get the shot on?
I want to make sure people are safe in my area. I want to go back to church and just have a normal life.
When Price isn't giving rides, she's booking appointments.
You're scheduled for Panola County Basil Civic Center, Thursday, March 11, 2021 at 12:20.
Since January, she's signed up more than 80 people for their vaccine appointments, visiting the state webpage up to 30 times a day.
You nervous? Oh, okay. I've had it. Don't worry about it. You'll be okay.
Price has lived in Sardis for nearly 30 years, raising 4 kids in the tiny town of just over 1,800 people. But now she says it feels like anything but home.
My daughter-in-law had COVID. That was in July, and she's still having symptoms. I had a friend whose parents both are deceased now from COVID. And a great friend, a minister, recently died of COVID. So it has really impacted me tremendously.
Panola County has one of the highest per capita rates of COVID infections in all of Mississippi and in the predominantly black Delta region. Plus, there's another problem.
Mississippi has one of the worst racial disparities in terms of vaccine distribution of any state in the country. Why do you think that is?
The rural area, people not able to know how to sign up, because several of my church members were saying, we're waiting for them to call us, the health department. Because if they're waiting for them to call them, then they're not going to get the vaccination.
Lack of reliable internet and access to transportation have crippled vaccination efforts in parts of rural Mississippi. So Price answered the call, breaking down barriers to ensure all of her neighbors get their shots.
Got my card today.
In the hopes that one day soon, her community can feel like home again.
How long do you plan to keep this up?
I hope once I get through with the elderly, I'll get to the young people. And as long as it takes, as long as it takes.
Tell them call me. I'll sign them up today. I'm ready.
And again, I think that's wonderful. I mean, she sat there and saw a problem, especially with vaccination in rural areas, and really wanted to help people get vaccinated, get the message out. And I always find it interesting that it's always the educators. And like I said before, to me, it's one of those things that just sticks with me, that educators just have a profound effect on their students and their communities and things of that nature, and they should all be recognized for it. But that being said, guys, that's really going to do it for our podcast this week. Like I said, I thank everybody for watching, for sharing, commenting. I know we can't do watch parties anymore because Facebook's starting to phase that out. Who knew? But aside from that, before I do get out of here, I do have to do some shameless plugging. The link down at the bottom, if you copy and paste that into your browser, will take you to my link tree of podcast groups and shows on Facebook and YouTube. I'm talking about How the Frack We Got Here, Get Bit, and the Off Limits Podcast. If you click on that link, it'll definitely take you to my Facebook groups as well as my YouTube pages. So definitely like, subscribe, and share for all those that you believe in and just news that informs you and doesn't try to change your opinion and persuade you. I certainly appreciate that. And also my travel page. I'm talking about Uncle Obie's Adventures and More. I do help with travel, and my thing about travel is, like I said before, guys, my goal is to do this, to get you to where you want to go and save a little money in your pocket. I know right now travel may not be as expensive as it used to be, but like I said, whether you're going down the road, across state, or across the pond, let me be that travel person for you and get you the best deal possible on rental cars, airfare, and hotels. And so like I said before, well, Uncle Obie's Adventures and More, we just don't sell travel, we sell great memories. And at the same time, guys, I do have a $100 referral fee going on. So, I'm sorry, that was sounding terribly bad. I do have a $100 referral, which means that if you send somebody to me and they book travel with me, then once they book travel with me, whether it's rental car, airfare, hotel, all the above, once they book travel with me, I will personally give you $100. That means that for every person that you send to me and they book travel, it's $100 in your pocket, and there is no limits on those referrals. So if you know 200 people or 20 people or maybe just 2 people, it still could be a good day for you regardless. But just think of me, William Buchanan, Uncle Obie's Adventures and More on Facebook, or me, William Buchanan, on Facebook, and let me know your travel plans and when you want to go, and let's make something happen. And last but certainly not least, my brother from another mother, who will be coming back. He did give a date. He hasn't announced it yet, but I'm so glad I can say it first. April 4th, which actually a couple weeks from now, my buddy Vaughn will be back doing his podcasting after a long hiatus, and I'm looking forward to it because that man is going to have a lot to say, and I cannot wait for that to happen. In the meantime, you can definitely go to his Facebook page at BigBZA and become his friend. He's friendly sometimes. Go to his video section, and you'll be able to see previous podcasts that he's done of his 4 shows. I'll start with the first one called The VSTs. The VSTs is a news podcast. That news can be music, video games, or trailers. I call Vaughn the king of the weird trailers because he always finds... it's a toss-up. Sometimes he finds great trailers about movies and video games. Sometimes he pulls up trailers that make me question our friendship. But I still love him. But it's an interactive show, as you can see my comments on the side. So definitely like and share and subscribe to that show. Another show that he has, for the sake of this podcast, we're going to call it RAF. What is RAF? RAF would be like America's Funniest Home Videos if done from WorldStar, which means that this is definitely an adult show. Do not bring your kids. But for us adults, it's meant for us to laugh, to relax, to reset our weeks to get us through this busy never-ending ride we call life. Definitely an interactive show, so definitely like, share, and subscribe from there. He also has another show that I'm looking forward to called the Rhythmless Music Podcast. You can reminisce over the rhythm, in which Vaughn, others like myself, and people that he also brings from the podcast will listen to music that he finds or asks us to look into, and we just discuss it, whether we like it or not. We're all different on the musical scale, but differences in music lead to great conversations, and that's what Rhythmless is. The Rhythmless Music Podcast is all about. And finally, do you like beats? Are you an upcoming artist that's looking for a beat? Looking for beats such as this? Okay, I play any more of that, he's going to make me charge for it. But that is actually Fonkin' Around. And what Fonkin' Around is that Vaughn is a beat maker. He likes to produce beats, and he likes to play with the ivory keys. Think of like Kanye without the crazy. But anyway, he does like to make beats and actually show them off from beginning to end, and also also for sale. Yes, those beats are for sale. So if you do like the beat that Vaughn is playing, definitely go to his page again, BigBZA on Facebook, and let him know, and he'll give you the details on how you can purchase those beats because they are definitely for sale. All of his shows can be found on his Facebook page, and like I said, April 4th is when he will go back to podcasting live. And like I said before, I personally cannot wait. Because he's going to have a lot to say, and like I said before, I am looking forward to it, of having my good friend back on the podcasting train with me. I know he took a very well-deserved off break, and I cannot wait for him to come back April 4th. So with that being said, guys, like I said, my podcast scheduling really hasn't changed. Of course, every Wednesday from 8:30 to 10 is the midweek edition of How the Frack We Got Here. Every Friday from 8:30 to 10 is my video game podcasting show called Get Bit, which we actually did do last night, as me and a couple of friends did talk about the Snyder Cut of Justice League, and the first episode of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Of course, on Saturdays from 10 a.m. to noon is the How the Frack We Got Here, the weekend edition, and a little bit later tonight, between 8:30 to 10 o'clock, will be the Off Limits podcast. It's a podcast that definitely does go there because there is no subject we will not talk about. And tonight, guys, I will have a special guest with me, but we will also go ahead. I did talk about the women in my last podcast. Now, guys, you're going to come under fire on this one. It's only fair. So hopefully see you guys a little bit later on tonight. That being said, guys, like I said before, COVID-19 is real. Please wear a mask, even if you had shots. Please still do social distancing. Please only go out if you have to and avoid large crowds if you can. The more we do this, even though shots are happening, the less of cases that are bound to show, and we can get to some sense of normal. We will not go back to the old normal. Let's just go ahead and just get that out the way right now. But we will get to a certain sense of a normalcy that may, make us feel like we can go out in the world again. I want to personally do that, but again, we all have to do what's needed for us to get there. Aside from that, guys, like I said before, thank you, nurses, doctors, teachers, teachers, first aid responders. Thank you those who are still working out there. I'm talking those that work in customer service and retail, fast food industries, gas stations, grocery stores, truck drivers, those that work in warehouses like Amazon, and those that work in areas like United States Postal Service, UPS, DHL, and FedEx, and all those other areas. Thank you for all that you do to keep the lights on for the rest of us. Aside from that, guys, like I said about how the frack we got here, it's all about staying informed. The whole point of this podcast is to basically do what the news stations of TVs like they used to do, which was simply put, giving you all the information, allowing you to make up your mind for yourself. But only because we do a lot better when we're informed. An uninformed individual can make terrible choices. An informed individual can make wonderful choices. But when you take that individual and go to a population of uninformed people, they will get you Trump. A group of informed people will get us our first Madam Vice President, who is also black. Again, guys, thank you all for watching. If you like what I did, please let me know. If you didn't like what I did, please let me know. I'm only trying to make this platform better for everybody to enjoy. And again, if you know somebody else that likes this kind of stuff, share it with them. I am just trying to reach out to the population, people. That's all I'm trying to do. Aside from that, guys, have a wonderful weekend. Thank you for all watching. And if you're watching this on the playback, please comment if it's live. I still want to know you guys' opinion. Aside from that, guys, take care of each other, and we'll get through this. Peace.